Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty and watched the blue-green planet grow larger through the main window. His hands were steady, but his heart was beating fast. This was it. The first peaceful meeting between humans and an alien race. After 3 years of careful messages sent through space, they were finally here. "Sir, we're getting a signal from the planet," said Lieutenant Lisa Chen from her station. "They're speaking in their language, but the computer is translating." Jake nodded and straightened his dress uniform. "Put it through." The voice that came through the speakers was strange, like water flowing over rocks, but the translation was clear. "Welcome, humans from Earth. We are the Zelari. Please follow our ships to the landing area."
Oh.
3 sleek vessels appeared from behind the planet's largest moon. They looked like giant sea creatures made of metal and crystal, moving through space as if they were swimming. Jake had seen pictures before, but seeing them in person took his breath away. "Follow them in," Jake ordered. "Nice and slow." "We don't want to seem threatening." Liberty descended through the planet's atmosphere. Below them stretched endless oceans dotted with floating cities that gleamed like pearls. The Zelari homeworld of Aquinus was beautiful beyond anything Jake had imagined. They landed at what looked like a giant lily pad made of white stone. As the ship settled, Jake could see hundreds of Zelari gathered to watch. They stood upright like humans, but their skin was pale blue and covered in patterns that glowed softly. They had large eyes like dolphins and moved with a grace that reminded Jake of dancers. Remember, Jake told his small diplomatic team, "We're guests here. Be respectful. Be careful. Don't touch anything unless they say it's okay." The airlock opened, and Jake stepped onto alien soil for the first time. The air was humid and smelled like the ocean after a storm. A group of Zelari approached, led by a tall figure wearing what looked like flowing robes made of living water. "I am High Chancellor Morden," the alien said through a small device on his chest that translated his words. "Welcome to Aquinus, Commander Morrison." Jake bowed slightly as they had practiced. "Thank you for having us, Chancellor. We're honored to be here." The ceremony that followed was long and formal. Jake and his team were presented to various Zelari officials, each one more important than the last. The translations were sometimes confusing, and Jake found himself nodding and smiling a lot while trying to understand Zelari customs. It was during the 3rd hour of ceremonies that Jake first saw her. She stood at the edge of the crowd clearly. Part of the royal family based on her ornate clothing, but something was different about her. While the other Zelari glowed with steady, beautiful patterns of light across their skin, her patterns flickered and jumped like a broken electric sign. She was smaller than the others and leaned heavily on a walking stick made of carved bone. When their eyes met across the crowd, Jake felt something strange happen in his chest. Her large, dark eyes were full of intelligence and sadness. She looked away quickly when she noticed him staring. "That is Princess Kiral, Chancellor Morden," said quietly, noticing Jake's gaze. "The Emperor's youngest daughter suffers from a condition that affects her light patterns and her mind speech. It is unfortunate." The way he said it made Jake angry, though he wasn't sure why. "What do you mean by mind speech? We Zelari can speak without words, sharing thoughts and feelings directly. It is how we truly communicate. Princess Kiral cannot do this properly. It makes her ... different." Jake wanted to say that being different wasn't necessarily bad, but he held his tongue. He was here as a diplomat, not to argue about their culture. The formal ceremonies finally ended as the planet's 2 suns began to set. Jake was exhausted from standing and trying to understand alien customs. He was looking forward to returning to his ship when a young Zelari approached him nervously. "Commander Morrison." The voice was soft and musical, even through the translator. "I am Princess Kiral. I wanted to thank you for coming to our world." Up close, Jake could see that her condition was more complex than he had first thought. Her skin flickered between pale blue and silver, creating patterns that were actually quite beautiful, just different from the steady glow of other Zelari. She moved carefully, favoring her left leg, but there was determination in every step. "The honor is ours, Princess," Jake replied. "Your world is amazing," she smiled. And when she did, her skin patterns brightened for just a moment. Most visitors find us strange. You do not seem afraid. Different doesn't mean strange, Jake said. On Earth we have a saying, variety is the spice of life. Differences make things interesting. Princess Kiral looked puzzled. Spice? I do not understand this word in this context, Jake laughed. It means that having different kinds of people makes life more enjoyable, more flavorful, like adding spices to food. Ah, she said, and her skin patterns shifted to what Jake was beginning to recognize as pleasure. Yes, I think I understand. Though my people do not always see it this way. Before Jake could respond, a commotion arose from the other side of the landing area. Alarms were ringing, and Zellery officials were running toward a group of communication devices that were flashing urgent colors. Chancellor Morden rushed over to Jake, his skin patterns showing distress. Commander, we have received terrible news. One of our colony worlds, Reeftar, has been struck by massive storms. The weather control systems have failed. Thousands of our people are trapped. What can we do to help? Jake asked immediately. The Chancellor looked surprised. You would help us? But you barely know us. That's what people do, Jake said simply. When someone needs help, you help them. Princess Kiral stepped forward, her walking stick tapping on the stone. Father will send rescue ships, but they will take days to reach Reeftar. The people there may not have days. Jake turned to her. What would you do if you could? I know the colony, she said. I designed many of their underwater cities. But I cannot go. My condition makes me unsuitable for rescue work. Why? Jake asked. You know the places that need help. You understand how your people think and what they need. That sounds exactly like what rescue work requires. Princess Kiral stared at him. But I cannot mind speak properly. I cannot move quickly. I am weak. You're not weak, Jake said firmly. You're different. And sometimes different is exactly what's needed. He turned to Chancellor Morden. My ship has emergency supplies and rescue equipment. We can reach the colony in hours, instead of days. But we'll need someone who knows the area. I will go, Princess Kiral said before the Chancellor could respond. Absolutely not, Morden replied immediately. It is too dangerous. The Emperor would never allow it. Then ask him, Jake said. Ask him if he wants to save his people or protect his pride. The argument that followed was intense. The Zellery officials speaking rapidly in their own language while their skin patterns flashed with emotion. Jake couldn't understand the words, but he could see that Princess Kiral was fighting hard for something she believed in. Finally, a new voice spoke. It was deep and powerful, and it made every Zellery in the area bow immediately. Emperor Vorth himself had arrived, his massive form covered in robes that seemed to be made of captured starlight. My daughter wishes to risk her life for our people, the Emperor said, looking directly at Jake. You would take her into danger? I would take her to help save lives, Jake replied. She knows things we need to know, and I think she's braver than anyone gives her credit for. The Emperor studied Jake for a long moment. Then he looked at his daughter, who stood as straight as she could despite her walking stick. Very well, he said finally. Go, save our people. Both of you. As Jake and Princess Kiral walked toward the Liberty together, she spoke quietly. Why did you do that? You do not know me. Jake thought about it for a moment. Because I see something in you that maybe your own people don't. See strength, intelligence, heart. Those matter more than being able to glow steady or walk perfectly. Princess Kiral stopped walking and stared at him. For the first time since he had met her, her skin patterns became completely steady, glowing with warm silver light. Thank you, she whispered, as they boarded the ship together. Jake had no idea that this moment would change both of their lives forever. He only knew that they had work to do and people to save. Everything else would have to wait. 6 months had passed since the rescue mission to Reeftar, and Jake Morrison found himself looking forward to each day in a way he never had before. The mission had been a complete success. Working together, he and Princess Kiral had saved over 2,000 Zellery colonists from the devastating storms. More importantly, they had proven that humans and Zellery could work as a team. Jake was now the permanent human ambassador to Aquinus, living in a beautiful underwater habitat that the Zelari had built specially for him. The dome-shaped building sat on the ocean floor near the capital city, with windows that showed him schools of colorful fish and strange sea plants that glowed in the dark. But the best part of his new life was the time he spent with Kiras. Every morning, she would swim down to visit him, moving through the water with a grace that took his breath away. In the ocean, her disability seemed to disappear. Faster and more agile than most, Zelari, dancing through the water like she was born for it. "Good morning, Jake," she said as she entered his habitat through the water lock. Her translator had been improved, and now her voice sounded more natural, more like her real voice. "Morning, Kira," Jake replied, using the shorter name she had told him to use when they were alone. "How did you sleep?" she laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Zelari do not sleep the way humans do. We enter a dream state where our minds rest, but our bodies remain aware. I dreamed of flying through space with you last night." Jake felt his heart skip. Over the past months, their friendship had grown into something deeper. He found himself thinking about her during meetings with other diplomats. He looked forward to their conversations more than anything else in his day. And sometimes, when she looked at him with those large, intelligent eyes, he wondered if she felt the same way. "Jake," she said, sitting down beside him at his breakfast table, "there is something I must tell you. My people have been talking about us." "What kind of talking?" Jake asked, though he suspected he knew. "Some say that we spend too much time together. They worry that I am becoming too attached to a human." Her skin patterns flickered with nervousness. "Others say that you are only being kind to me because you feel sorry for me." Jake set down his coffee and turned to face her completely. "What do you think?" Kiral was quiet for a long moment. "I think that you are the first person who has ever looked at me and seen something other than my flaws. When I am with you, I do not feel broken." "You're not broken," Jake said firmly. "You're perfect exactly as you are." Her skin patterns brightened, shifting to colors Jake had learned meant happiness and affection. "And I think," she said softly, "that I am falling in love with you." Jake's heart stopped for a moment, then started beating so fast he thought she might hear it. "Kira, it is impossible, I know," she said quickly. "We are different species. My people would never accept it. Your people probably would not either. But I needed to tell you the truth." Jake reached out and gently took her hand. Her skin was smooth and warm, and he could feel the subtle vibrations of her bioluminescent patterns under his fingers. "I love you too," he said. "Right. I've been trying to figure out how to tell you for weeks." The smile that spread across her face was like sunrise over the ocean. Her entire body glowed with soft, warm light, more beautiful than any sunset Jake had ever seen. "But you are right," Jake continued. "It won't be easy. There will be people on both sides who won't understand." "There is something else," Kiral said. "Something you should know about my people and how we love." She explained about the Zelari bonding ritual, something Jake had only heard rumors about. When the Zelari fell in love, they performed an ancient ceremony that linked their minds together permanently. They could share thoughts, emotions, even memories. It was the deepest form of connection possible for her species. "But humans cannot bond," she said sadly. "Your minds do not work the same way. Even if we wanted to try, it would be impossible." "How do you know?" Jake asked. "Has anyone ever tried?" Kiral looked surprised. "Well, no. But our scientists say that human brains are too different. The neural pathways are not compatible. Your scientists also said you couldn't be a good rescue worker because of your condition," Jake pointed out. "And they were wrong about that." Hope flickered in her eyes. "You would be willing to try? Even though it might be dangerous? For you. I'd try anything." The next few weeks were spent in secret preparation. Kiral researched the bonding ritual in the ancient texts, while Jake worked with Dr. Helen Park, the human medical officer who had remained on Aquinus to study Zelari biology. Together, they tried to understand how the process might work with human brain chemistry. "It's crazy," Dr. Park said after reviewing the data. "But your brain patterns and Kiral's are surprisingly similar. Her condition seems to have altered her neural frequencies in a way that might actually make bonding with a human possible." "So her disability might be what makes this work?" Jake asked. "Exactly. What her people see as a flaw might be the key to something completely new." The night they decided to attempt the bonding, Kiral took Jake to a sacred place deep in the ocean. It was a cave filled with crystals that grew naturally in formations that looked like flowers. The crystals glowed with their own light, filling the space with soft blue and green colors. "This is where my grandparents bonded," Kiral explained. "It is a place of great power for my people." They sat facing each other in the center of the crystal garden. If Kiral had taught Jake the ritual words, though he wasn't sure he could pronounce them correctly. "Are you ready?" she asked. Jake nodded, though his heart was pounding with nervousness and excitement. Kiral began to sing in the ancient Zalari language. Her voice echoed off the crystals, creating harmonies that seemed to come from everywhere at once. As she sang, her bioluminescent patterns began to pulse in rhythm with the music. Jake felt something strange happening in his mind. It was like a door opening that he hadn't known was there. He could sense Kiril's presence in a way that was completely new, like she was sitting inside his thoughts. "Can you hear me?" her voice said, but not through his ears. The words appeared directly in his mind. "Yes." He thought back and watched her face light up with joy. "It is working," she said, both out loud and in his thoughts. Ch-ch. It is actually working. The sensation grew stronger. Jake could feel Kiril's emotions mixing with his own. Our love for him was like warm sunlight in his chest. Her memories began to flow into his mind, and he saw her childhood through her eyes, felt her loneliness and pain, but also her strength and determination. At the same time, she was experiencing his memories. She saw Earth through his eyes, felt his wonder at meeting her for the first time, understood his love for her in a way that words could never express. The bonding process took hours. When it was finally complete, they sat in the crystal cave holding each other. Their minds connected in a way that neither had imagined possible. "I can feel what you feel, Jake," whispered amazed. "And I can see what you see," Kiral replied. "We are truly one now." Their happiness was short-lived. Word of the bonding spread quickly through both human and Zalari communities. By the time they returned to the capital city, protesters were gathering outside the royal palace. "Abomination," some of the Zalari chanted, natural mixing of species. On Earth, the news caused an equally strong reaction. Some humans celebrated it as a breakthrough in interspecies relations. Others demanded that Jake be recalled immediately, claiming he had been compromised by alien influence. Emperor Velthor summoned them both to the throne room. His massive form seemed even more imposing than usual, and his skin patterns showed deep anger and disappointment. "What have you done?" he demanded. "Do you realize what chaos you have created?" Kiral said, standing as straight as she could despite her walking stick. "We have done what we needed to do. We love each other," the Emperor spat. "You have endangered the peace between our species for love. Already, there are calls for war from both sides. Some of my own advisors want to declare Jake an enemy spy. And some of my people want to recall me to Earth," Jake added. "They think I've been brainwashed." The Emperor studied them both for a long moment. "The bond cannot be undone," he said finally. "What is done is done. But I cannot protect you from the consequences. There are those who will see this as an act of war." "Then what do we do?" Kiral asked. "You choose," her father replied. "You can stay here and face the anger of my people, knowing that your presence might destroy the peace we have worked so hard to build. Or you can separate, though I am told the pain of a broken bond might kill you both." Jake felt Kiril's anguish through their connection. She was torn between her love for him and her duty to her people. He could feel her considering the terrible choice of voluntary separation to save both their worlds from war. "There might be another option," Jake said slowly. An idea was forming in his mind, one that would require great sacrifice from both of them. "What option?" the Emperor asked. "We leave," Jake said, "both of us. We go somewhere far away where our bond can't be used as an excuse for war. We remove ourselves from the equation." Kiral looked at him with surprise and sadness. "You would leave your people? Your career? Everything you have worked for?" 3 years had passed since Jake Morrison made the hardest decision of his life. Standing in the cargo bay of the survey ship UES Pioneer, he stared out at the endless stars and tried not to think about the woman he had left behind on Aquinus. It hadn't worked the way they planned. The exile was supposed to be temporary, just long enough for tensions to cool down between humans and Zalari. But the political situation had only gotten worse. Conservative groups on both sides used Jake and Kiravel's bond as an example of everything wrong with the alliance. They said it proved that the two species could never truly trust each other. So Jake had made the ultimate sacrifice. He had left Kiravel behind and requested assignment to the Deep Space Exploration Program as far from Zalari space as possible. It was supposed to protect her and preserve the peace between their peoples. The pain of their broken connection. It was like a constant ache in his chest. Even now, 3 years later, he sometimes woke up expecting to feel her thoughts alongside his own. Instead, there was only emptiness where her presence used to be.
Captain Marson.
We're approaching the Kepler 442 system, called out Lieutenant Lisa Chen from the pilot's seat. Long-range sensors are picking up some unusual readings. Jake forced himself to focus on the present. He was the captain of the Pioneer now, leading a team of scientists and explorers on missions to map new star systems. It was important work, but it felt hollow compared to what he had lost. "What kind of readings?" he asked, walking over to look at the sensor display. "Energy signatures that don't match any known technology," replied Dr. Helen Park, the ship's medical officer who had transferred with him from the Liberty. "It looks like there might be artificial structures in the system." Jake's crew was small, but skilled. Besides Lisa and Dr. Park, there was engineer Carlos Rodriguez, who could fix anything, and xenobiologist Dr. Sam Taylor, who specialized in studying alien life forms. They had been together for 2 years now, and Jake trusted them completely. "Take us in for a closer look," Jake ordered. "But keep us at a safe distance. If there are aliens here, we don't want to surprise them." As they approached the system, the sensor readings became clearer. There were definitely artificial structures around the fourth planet, but they were damaged and drifting. Whatever had built them was probably gone. "It looks like the remains of a space station," Carlos reported. "But the design is unlike anything in our databases. Are you picking up any life signs?" Jake asked. "Negative," Dr. Park replied. "But there are some strange energy readings coming from the wreckage. We should investigate." Jake nodded, but something felt wrong. He had learned to trust his instincts during his years in space, and right now they were telling him to be careful. Meanwhile, on Aquinus, Princess Kiravel sat alone in her chambers, staring at a small device that she kept hidden from everyone else. It was a human communication device that Jake had given her. Before he left, tuned to frequencies that only she knew about. For 3 years, she had listened to it every night, hoping to hear some word from him. The silence was worse than any physical pain she had ever experienced. The broken bond had left her feeling like half of herself was missing. She couldn't eat properly, couldn't sleep, and the bright patterns on her skin had faded to dull gray. Her father, Emperor Velthor, had tried to help her move on. He'd arranged meetings with suitable Zelari males, hoping she could form a new bond. But it was impossible. The connection she had shared with Jake had changed her brain in ways that made bonding with anyone else painful and unsuccessful. "My lady," said her servant Naya, entering the chamber with the evening meal, "you must eat something." "You are wasting away?" Kiravel looked at the food without interest. "I am not hungry. This cannot continue," Naya said firmly. She had been Kiravel's friend since childhood, and was one of the few people who dared to speak honestly to her. "You are dying slowly, and for what? He is gone. He made his choice." "Made his choice to protect me," Kiravel replied. "And to protect both our peoples. But that does not make the pain any less." What neither of them knew was that their separation had created more than just emotional pain. Hidden deep in the royal palace, in chambers that were guarded by Kiravel's most trusted servants, a secret was growing. 4-year-old Zara was unlike any child ever born in the galaxy. She had her mother's graceful build and bioluminescent skin, but her patterns were unique, shifting through colors that no pure Zalari could produce. Her eyes were Jake's blue, and she had inherited his curiosity about everything around her. More importantly, she had telepathic abilities that far exceeded anything seen in either species. She could communicate with sea creatures, sense emotions from great distances, and sometimes seemed to know things that no one had told her. "Mama is sad again," Zara said to Naya, as they played with floating toys in the nursery pool. "She misses Papa." Naya's heart ached for the child. Zara knew about her father from stories, but she had never met him. Kiral had been pregnant when Jake left, but she had hidden the pregnancy from everyone except her most loyal servants. If the political factions knew about the child, they would either try to use her as a weapon or eliminate her as a threat. "Your mama loves you very much," Naya said gently. "Somewhere out there, your papa loves you too, even though he doesn't know you exist." Back on the Pioneer, Jake and his team were exploring the wreckage of the alien space station. They had discovered that it belonged to a species called the Vorth, according to the markings they could translate. "These structures are incredibly advanced," Dr. Taylor reported as they examined the remains. "But they were destroyed by weapons. Fire. There was definitely a battle here." "How long ago?" Jake asked. "Based on the energy decay patterns, I'd say about 6 months," Carlos replied. "Whatever happened here, it happened recently." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Any idea who they were fighting? "The weapon signatures are strange," Dr. Park said, studying her readings. "They show characteristics of both human and Zalari. Technology, but more advanced than either." Before Jake could respond, the ship's alarm system began blaring. Lisa's voice came over the intercom, urgent and frightened. "Captain, we've got multiple contacts approaching fast. They're not showing up on sensors, but I can see them through the viewport." Jake rushed to the bridge to find Lisa staring at the main screen in shock. Ships were decloaking all around them, sleek and deadly looking, with designs that seemed to flow like liquid metal. "This is Captain Morrison of the Earthship Pioneer," Jake broadcast on all frequencies. "We are on a peaceful exploration mission. Please respond." The response came in a voice that sounded like grinding stone. "You are the bonded one. It's the one who connected with the water dwellers. We have been looking for you." Jake's blood ran cold. "Who are you? What do you want?" "We are the Vorth. We are dying, and you hold the key to our survival. You will come with us, or we will take you." The Vorth ships moved closer, their weapons charging with energy that made the space around them shimmer. Jake realized that his crew was completely outgunned. "Captain," Lisa whispered, "what do we do?" Jake thought quickly. He could try to run, but the Vorth ships were faster. He could try to fight, but that would only get his crew killed. Was only one option that might save them. "I'll come with you," Jake said, "but you let my crew go. They have nothing to do with this." "Acceptable," the Vorth replied, "but you will not be alone for long. We are already moving to collect the water dweller you bonded with. Soon you will both serve our purpose." Jake's heart stopped. They were going after Kiral. "Belay that order," he said quickly. "I'll cooperate completely, but leave her alone. She's not part of this." The Vorth made a sound that might have been laughter. "She became part of this when she bonded with you. The connection you two share is exactly what we need. You will both help us, or both your species will be destroyed." As Jake was transported to the Vorth ship, his last thought was of Kiral. He hoped she would forgive him for what was about to happen. He had tried to protect her by leaving, but somehow he had only made things worse. On Aquinus, Kiral suddenly sat up in her bed, gasping. She had felt something through the broken bond, just for a moment. Jake was alive, but he was in terrible. "Danger, Naya," she called out, her voice stronger than it had been in months. "Summon my father. Something is wrong. Something is very wrong." In the nursery, little Zara began to cry. Her hybrid mind had sensed something that frightened her, something dark and hungry approaching through the stars. "Mama," she whispered, though no one could hear her. "The bad ones are coming." The Vorth fleet was already moving towards Zalari space, their ships invisible to normal sensors. They had been studying the human-Zalari bond for years, waiting for the right moment to strike. They needed the unique neural connection that Jake and Kiral shared, and they would do anything to get it. As Jake sat in his cell aboard the Vorth ship, stared out at the stars and tried to send a message through. The broken bond. He didn't know if Kiral could hear him, but he had to try. I'm sorry." He thought as hard as he could. "I tried to protect you, but I failed. They're coming for you now. Be ready." 3 years of separation had weakened their connection, but not destroyed it completely. Emperor Velthor stood in his war room, surrounded by his most trusted advisors. Staring at the holographic display that showed Vorth ships approaching Zelari space, his massive frame was tense with worry, and his skin patterns flickered with colors that meant fear and anger. "How many ships?" he asked his military commander. "At least 50, Your Majesty," Admiral Kethfa replied. "They appeared from nowhere, using some kind of cloaking technology we've never seen before. Our sensors can barely detect them, and they have taken the human Jake Morrison prisoner." "Yes, sir." "They intercepted his exploration ship 3 days ago. His crew was released, but they took him." The Emperor was quiet for a long moment. Despite everything that had happened, he still respected Jake Morrison. The man had sacrificed his own happiness to try to preserve peace between their species. "They want my daughter too," Veltho said finally. The message they sent was clear. "They want both Jake and Kiral because of their bond. Perhaps we should consider giving them what they want," suggested one of the younger advisors. "Princess Kiral is only one person. We cannot risk the entire empire for her." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Every other advisor stepped back as the Emperor's skin patterns turned deep red with rage. "You dare suggest I sacrifice my daughter?" Velther's voice was like thunder underwater. "She is a princess of the royal blood. She is worth more than 1,000 cowards like you." The young advisor bowed deeply, trembling. "Forgive me, Your Majesty. I spoke without thinking." "You spoke like a fool," the Emperor replied. "Leave my sight before I decide you are not worth keeping alive." As the advisor hurried away, Admiral Kethfa spoke up. "Your Majesty, we have contacted Earth. Their government is sending a fleet to help us fight the Vorth. How long until they arrive?" 6 days at best. The Vorth will be here in 2. The Emperor closed his eyes. His empire had the most advanced navy in the galaxy, but these Vorth ships were using technology that seemed impossible. Worse, they seemed to know exactly how Zelari defenses worked, as if they had been studying them for years. "There is one possibility," Admiral Kethfa said carefully. "Something our scientists discovered while studying the old records of Princess Kiril's bonding with the human." "What possibility?" "The bond created unique neural patterns that we've never seen before. Our telepathic specialists think those patterns might be the key to understanding how the Vorth technology works." The Emperor turned to stare at his admiral. "You're saying we need both Jake and Kiral to fight these invaders?" "I'm saying their connection might be our only hope." Meanwhile, in her chambers deep in the royal palace, Princess Kiral was preparing for war in her own way. For the first time in 3 years, her skin patterns were bright and steady. The moment she had felt Jake's presence through their broken bond, something had awakened in her that she thought was gone forever. "My lady," Naya said, as she helped Kiral into the ancient battle armor of the royal family, "are you certain about this?" "You have not fought in years in your condition." "My condition makes me different, not weak," Kiral replied, echoing words Jake had spoken to her long ago. Right now, different might be exactly what we need. The armor was beautiful, made of scales that looked like they came from some great sea creature. It glowed with soft blue light and seemed to move, like living tissue. When Kiral put on the helmet, her mind became clearer than it had been in years. "Bring me to Zara," she said. Naya led her to the hidden nursery where the 4-year-old girl was playing with toys that floated in the air around her using some kind of telekinetic power. When she saw her mother in armor, Zara's eyes went wide. "Mama, you look like a warrior queen from the old stories," the little girl said. Kiral knelt down beside her daughter. "Zara, I need you to listen carefully. Bad people are coming who want to hurt our family. I have to go fight them." "Is Papa coming too?" Zara asked with hope in her voice. Kiril's heart broke a little. "Yes, sweetheart, Papa is coming. He's in trouble, and I have to help save him." "I want to help too," Zara said, her hybrid features showing determination that reminded Kiral strongly of Jake. "You are helping," Kiral said, kissing her daughter's forehead, "by staying safe and being brave. Promise me you'll stay here with Naya, no matter what happens." "I promise, Mama." As Kiral left the nursery, she didn't notice that Zara's eyes had begun to glow with the same blue light as her father's. The Vorth fleet arrived at Aquinus exactly when predicted. Their ships materialized out of empty space like ghosts becoming solid, surrounding the planet in a formation that looked like a giant net. Jake stood in his cell aboard the lead Vorth ship, watching his adopted homeworld through a small window. He had spent 3 days as their prisoner, and he still didn't fully understand what they wanted from him. The Vorth looked like humans who had been changed by some terrible disease. Their skin was gray and cracked, their eyes were black holes, and they moved with jerky motions like broken machines. When they spoke, their voices sounded like metal scraping against stone. "Soon you will see your bonded one again," said the Vorth leader, whose name seemed to be something like Sectar. "Soon you will help us save our species. I've told you." 100 times, Jake replied. "I don't know how to help you. I don't even understand what you want. You will understand when the time comes." Your bond with the water dweller created something new in both your minds. Something we need to survive. Before Jake could ask what that meant, alarms began sounding throughout the Vorth ship. Through his window, he could see Zelari warships rising from the ocean, their hulls gleaming like jewels as they moved to intercept the invaders. The battle began without warning. The Vorth ships opened fire with weapons that shot beams of pure darkness, while the Zelari responded with torpedoes that exploded in bursts of bright blue energy. The space around Aquinus lit up like a deadly fireworks display, but Jake could see that the Zelari were losing. The Vorth ships were too fast, too well protected. For every Vorth ship that was destroyed, 3 Zelari vessels were torn apart. "Stop this," Jake said to Sectar. "You're slaughtering innocent people." "They are not innocent," the Vorth leader replied. "They stand between us and survival. But their deaths can be avoided if you cooperate." "What do you want me to do?" "Call to your bonded one. Bring her to us willingly. If she comes, we will stop the attack." Jake stared at the battle raging outside. He could see Zelari ships exploding, their crews dying in the cold vacuum of space. He knew that Kiral would come to save these people whether he called to her or not. She was that kind of person. But he also knew that if the Vorth got what they wanted from both of them, it might mean something even worse for both their species. "I need to know what you're really planning," Jake said. "Tell me the truth, and I'll consider it." Sectar was quiet for a moment. Then he began to speak, and what he said made Jake's blood run cold. "We are dying," the Vorth leader said. "Our sun is burning out, and our bodies are failing. We have searched the galaxy for a way to save ourselves, and we found it in the stories. Of your bond with the water dweller?" "What stories?" "The stories of 2 minds becoming one, of consciousness shared across species. We believe that if we can copy this process, we can transfer our minds into the bodies of younger, healthier species. We can live forever." Jake felt sick. "You want to steal our bodies? We want to survive. We will start with your species and the water dwellers. Once we perfect the process, we will spread to every world in the galaxy." "It's not bonding," Jake said angrily. "That's invasion. That's murder." "That is survival," Sectar replied. "And you will help us, or we will destroy every living thing on that planet." Down on Aquinus, Princess Kiral was leading her own ship toward the battle. The royal vessel was ancient but powerful, covered in weapons that had been passed down through generations of her family. As she flew through the chaos of the space battle, she could feel something calling to her. Through the broken bond, she could sense Jake's presence somewhere in the enemy fleet. He was alive, but he was in pain, both physical and emotional. "Princess," said her pilot, "we're receiving a transmission. It's from the Vorth fleet." "Put it through." Jake's voice filled the bridge, but he sounded tired and desperate. "Kira, don't come up here. It's a trap. They want to use our bond for something terrible." "I know it's a trap," she replied. "I'm coming anyway. Please, just run. Take your people and get as far away as possible." "I'm not leaving you again," Kiral said firmly. "We're stronger together than apart. Proved that once before." As she spoke, she felt their bond growing stronger again. The 3 years of separation had weakened it, but not destroyed it. Now, with both of them in danger, the connection was rebuilding itself. And somewhere far below on the planet, little Zara felt her parents' minds touching for the first time since she was born. The hybrid child's own telepathic ability suddenly exploded outward, reaching across space to touch both their minds for a moment. Jake and Kiral both felt a presence they didn't recognize, but somehow knew was precious beyond measure. It was young and innocent, but incredibly powerful. What was that? Jake whispered. I don't know, Kiral replied, though part of her suspected the truth. But I think our bond just became much more complicated. The space battle around Aquinus was becoming desperate. Princess Kiral watched through her ship's windows as another Zalari cruiser exploded in a ball of fire. The Vorth weapons were too powerful, and their ships seemed to know exactly where. The Zalari would attack before they even moved. Princess, we're being targeted, her pilot warned. Multiple Vorth ships are moving to intercept us. Let them come, Kiral replied. Through her restored bond with Jake, she could feel his presence somewhere in the enemy fleet. He was afraid, but not for himself. He was terrified that she would be captured or killed trying to save him. Kira, please turn back, Jake's voice said in her mind. They want both of us. If they get you too, there won't be anyone left to stop them. Then we make sure they don't get either of us, she replied through their mental connection. As the Vorth ships closed in on her vessel, something unexpected happened. Kiral felt a third presence join their bond, small and bright and incredibly powerful. It was familiar, yet strange, like a voice she had heard in dreams. Mama, Papa. The mental voice was young and clear. I can hear you both now. Jake and Kiral both gasped at the same time. Through their bond, they could see each other's memories, and suddenly they both understood the truth. We have a daughter, Jake whispered, wonder and joy filling his thoughts. Her name is Zara, Kiral replied. She's 4 years old, and she's more powerful than both of us combined. Down on Aquinus, in the hidden nursery deep in the royal palace, little Zara sat cross-legged on the floor, with her eyes closed. Her hybrid body was glowing brighter than any Zelari child ever had, and the toys around her were floating in complex patterns through the air. Miss Zara, what are you doing? Snaya asked nervously. I'm helping Mama and Papa, the little girl replied without opening her eyes. The bad gray people want to hurt everyone, but I can stop them. Sweetheart, you're just a child. You should stay hidden, like your mother said. Zara opened her eyes, and they were glowing with the same blue light as her father's, but much brighter. I'm not just a child, Naya. I'm something new. In space, the Vorth leader Sectar was becoming frustrated. Ships had surrounded Princess Kiril's vessel, but every time they fired their weapons, she seemed to know exactly where the shots would be and moved out of the way at the last second. How is she doing this? He demanded of his subordinates. Unknown, Lord Sectar. Says if she can predict our actions before we make them. What Sectar didn't understand was that Kiral wasn't predicting anything. Through their bond, Jake was watching the Vorth bridge and telling her exactly what they were planning. And through their daughter's enhanced abilities, their connection was stronger than it had ever been. Jake Kiral said through their bond, I have an idea, but it's dangerous. What kind of idea? What if we don't try to escape? What if we let them capture me, but we use our bond to turn the tables on them? Jake felt sick at the thought. Absolutely not. I won't let you sacrifice yourself. I'm not sacrificing anything. I'm trusting you. Trusting us. When they bring me aboard their ship, we'll be close enough for our bond to affect their technology.
Ow.
Do you know it will work? Because our daughter just showed me something through our connection. The Vorth technology isn't completely mechanical. It's partially telepathic. That's how they've been reading our tactics. But it also means we can interfere with it. Before Jake could argue, Kiral did something that terrified him. She ordered her pilot to stop dodging and let the Vorth capture her ship. Tractor beams locked onto her vessel and pulled it into the main Vorth ship. Minutes later, Kiral was brought to the same cell block where Jake was being held. When she walked into his cell, 3 years of separation fell away in an instant. They held each other tightly. Their bond snapped back to full strength like a rubber band that had been stretched to its limit. Through their connection, they could feel each other's thoughts and emotions as clearly as their own. I missed you so much, Jake whispered. Never again, Kiral replied. Whatever happens, we stay together from now on. How touching, came the voice of Sectar from the doorway. The bonded pair is reunited. Now you will help us save our species. We'll never help you steal other people's bodies, Jake said angrily. Will help us or we will destroy every world in both your empires. But first, let me show you exactly what we can do." Sektar led them to a viewing chamber where they could see the battles still raging outside. As they watched, one of the Vorth ships fired a new type of weapon at a Zelari cruiser. Instead of exploding, the cruiser simply stopped moving. Its lights went out, and it began drifting like a dead thing. "What did you do to them?" Kiral demanded. "We drained their life force," Sektar replied. "Every living thing on that ship is now dead, and their energy has been transferred to us. This is what we offer your species. Join us willingly, and some of you will survive in new bodies for a fuse, and all of you will simply feed our continued existence." Jake felt rage building inside him, but he also felt something else. Through their bond, he could sense that Kiral had a plan, and through their daughter's connection, he could feel that Zara was somehow involved. "You want to know how our bonding works?" Kiral asked Sektar. "Yes. We must understand the process before we can replicate it. Then let me show you." Kiral took Jake's hand, and they both reached out with their minds. But instead of showing Sektar how their bond worked, they used their connection to probe the Vorth ship's systems. What they found shocked them. The Vorth technology was based on stolen, telepathic abilities from dozens of different species. They had been conquering worlds for centuries, taking the mental powers of other races and combining them into their machines. But the system had a weakness. It was designed to work with many weak telepathic connections, not one incredibly strong one. Now, Kiral whispered to Jake through their bond. Together, they poured their combined mental energy into the ship's telepathic network. The Vorth systems, designed for control and domination, couldn't handle the pure love and trust that flowed between Jake and Kiral. Warning alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Lights flickered, and several Vorth collapsed as their stolen telepathic abilities backfired on them. "What are you doing?" Sektar screamed. "We're showing you what real bonding looks like," Jake replied. "It's not about taking, it's about giving." They weren't done. Through their daughter's enhanced abilities, they reached out to every Zelari ship in the battle. Zara's hybrid consciousness served as a bridge, allowing them to create temporary mental connections with hundreds of Zelari warriors. For the first time in history, an entire fleet fought as one mind. The Zelari ships moved in perfect coordination, anticipating each other's actions and supporting each other in ways that seemed impossible. The tide of battle turned in minutes. Vorth ships that had seemed invincible were suddenly outmaneuvered and outfought by opponents who knew their every move before they made it. On Aquinus, little Zara stood up in the nursery, her entire body blazing with light. "Naya, I need to talk to the bad gray people." "What do you mean, sweetheart? They're scared and dying, and that's why they're being mean. Maybe if I explain things to them, they'll stop trying to hurt everyone." Before Naya could stop her, Zara reached out with her mind across space to the Vorth fleet. Her hybrid consciousness was unlike anything the Vorth had ever encountered. She was part human, part Zelari, and something entirely new. "Lo," she said directly into Sektar's mind. "I'm Zara. Why are you trying to hurt my mama and papa?" Sektar staggered as the child's voice filled his thoughts. It was so bright and pure that it hurt, but at the same time, it was the most beautiful thing he had ever experienced. You're the hybrid," he gasped. "I don't know what that means," Zara replied honestly, "but I know you're scared. I can feel it. You don't want to be mean. You just want to live." Through her innocent perspective, Sektar suddenly saw what his people had become. They had been so focused on survival that they had forgotten what made life worth living. They had become parasites, stealing from others instead of creating something of their own. "Child," he said, both aloud and in his mind, "we are dying. Our sun is gone. Our bodies are failing. We have no choice." "There's always a choice," Zara said, echoing words her mother had once spoken. "My mama and papa chose to love each other. Even when it was hard, you can choose something different too." "What do you mean? Instead of taking from other people, why don't you try sharing? My parents are stronger together than apart." "Maybe you could be stronger if you worked with other people instead of against them." It was such a simple idea, but it hit Sektar like lightning. His people had been trying to steal telepathic abilities for centuries. But what if they could develop genuine partnerships instead? You would do this? He asked. Your people would help us? I can't speak for all of them, Zara said seriously. But I can speak for my family. And we believe that everyone deserves a chance to be better. The battle stopped as suddenly as it had begun. Vorth ships stopped firing and began broadcasting messages of surrender. Their leader had made a choice that none of them had expected. Jake and Kiral stood together on the bridge of the Vorth flagship, holding hands and marveling at what their daughter had accomplished.